Hey, Internet, whoever happens to watch this, I'm wondering if you can help me out with some nerdery skills. What I do when I'm recording show notes for podcasts for clients or my own stuff often is this is an episode of Shop Talk Show. I use a little text expander snippet where I type STQ and then I can type a time code. Let's say it's 10 minutes into the podcast. There's the timestamp and then it's whatever happened. So that's what this is a list of, is a bunch of those. What I'd like to be able to do is then take these and get them into an app called Podcast Chapters, where it can automatically populate this list. So the way the Podcast Chapters app works is you can sort of replicate that whole thing again with what happened, and you could put a URL in, and then it's at the 10-minute mark. And then I've got a chapter marker that can work in certain podcast apps to jump ahead or skip back or whatever. So to get from this to this, Podcast Chapters imports .q files. So what I discovered is this generator online, qgenerator.net, where you put the show name if you want, episode title, file name. It doesn't really matter, but I'm just doing that because that's what it calls for. But then it has the track list of like chapters. So this would be like the title of the chapter. And then you separate it down here in a separate field into the time code that you want. So 1 minute, 49 seconds, 8 minutes, 40 seconds, etc. And then it builds a Q file. So back in Podcast Chapters, I can import that. I have it here somewhere. Boom. So it's all there. But right now I am sort of manually, because of my workflow here when I'm editing and making notes on an app or on a podcast, that workflow, I guess I could change that. Anyways, I'm wondering if there's a way to like go from this to a Q file, this format, without doing this step in between. Feels like there should be, and I can adjust my workflow and then I text expander snippet maybe, but to somehow have skip this middle step so that I can just go from my show notes. This is for the web page. This is what shows on the Shop Talk Show, let's say, or whatever podcast site. That'll show there. It'll show in the show notes out of a podcast player as well, I believe, but it doesn't support or follow the podcast chapters format that's required. My brain is kind of stumped, and maybe I just need more coffee, but some way to get from this to this, which is a .q file, which then goes into this automatically, and you're off to the races. If you can help me, either leave a comment below or email me, chris@goodstuff.fm, I guess. Thanks.